Welcome to Haunted Talks, the official podcast of the Haunted Walk, offering thematic walking tours of Kingston, Ottawa, and Toronto, Ontario. My name is Jim Dean. I'm the creative director of the company, and we really appreciate you joining us today on what I think is going to be a very special episode. Over the years, we've had many chances to look at, investigate, and share many different types of ghost photos and videos. But for the first time ever, some of our Haunted Walk tour guides have recorded potential paranormal activity on video at one of our haunted locations where we tell a story each evening. Before we get to that discussion, just some quick news that our Halloween season tickets are now up for sale. And this year our Halloween season is going to run October 9th through to the 31st in all three of our cities. A few highlights would include Kingston, where you can join us for our Midnight Ghosts of the Fort tour. And I can assure you, Fort Henry is a very spooky place late at night. In Toronto, you could join us for our Ghosts and Spirits of the Distillery tour. And that's where our video was shot on that particular tour. And during Halloween, that's going to become our Toronto's Greatest Ghost tour, as the tour is also going to feature some additional interactives and challenges. And at the end, you'll have your say in which ghost you think is Toronto's greatest. In Ottawa, one of my favorites is our Incident at the Bunker, a zombie adventure. This is very different than our other tours, which are about real-life ghost stories. This is more of a narrative adventure about a zombie outbreak in the Diefenbunker, Canada's Cold War Museum. And if you've never been in the bunker, there's probably no better way to see it than with a horde of zombies trying to have you for lunch. As a way to thank all of you for listening to the show, if you use the promo code Haunted Talks to buy your Halloween ticket, that's the name of the show, Haunted Talks, all one word. You can use that special code to get 10% off any of your tickets, and certainly we'd love to see you during our Halloween season. Now, as today's show is really focused on the video, I certainly would like to know where you can see it. And if you go to our website, which is hauntedwalk.com/podcasts, that's hauntedwalk.com/podcasts, the video that we'll be discussing tonight will be available there. If you should listen to the podcast first or watch the video first, that's really up to you. You can go either way and you might get a slightly different perspective. I will be giving a brief recap in a moment of what you actually see in the video. So if you want to watch it first, hit pause now, and when you come back, we'll carry on with the discussion. The video was filmed by two of our tour guides, Claire, who was holding the camera, which was her cell phone, as well as Corey, who is also there with her. They were filming outside of a store in the distillery called Hastens, and that's located at 18 Distillery Lane. Now, Hastens makes top-end natural mattresses. They're really quite amazing products. If you're in the market for a new mattress, I don't think you could beat these. But they were filming, the store was closed. This was about 8:30 p.m. in the evening. So it was dark in the store except for a few lights that were left on. And they were filming with the camera directly against the glass of the front window of the store. So the video you see is looking inside the store itself. Now, what happens in the video is that the lights seem to dim and brighten and flicker in very unusual and sporadic ways. In the corners of the frame, or kind of the far left and right, the lights there seem to dim and get brighter a number of times. But perhaps most interesting is directly across from where they were filming, kind of the far end of the store, there's also a door through to the other side. And right above that door, there's track lighting. And there's one of the lights right in the middle, right above the door, just that one, which seems to flicker very frequently. And perhaps even once at Claire's request. So very unusual activity. This is a spot on our tour, so we do tell the story of the building. Quite a few interesting things have happened there, and we'll be sharing some of those in the interviews. One of the most interesting things about it is that this activity seems to be happening for Claire more and more frequently. None of the other tour guides have really experienced this to the degree that Claire has. So a very interesting kind of personal connection to this as well. I recorded all the interviews with all the people involved in the situation. I first wanted to get a good grasp on what exactly happened and what the tour guides were doing or up to, that kind of thing. And then I wanted to speak to one of the managers at Hastens to see if this type of flickering lights is unusual as it appears. And then I also spoke to an electrician who could give us a little input upon if there's an electrical explanation to what's happening here. The first person I thought I should speak to was our Toronto manager, Rowena Brooke, so she could fill me on some of the broad strokes of what was happening here. Hey Rowena, it's Jim. Got your email and had a quick chance to look at that video you sent. It does seem quite interesting. Could you tell me a little bit more about the specifics of where it was shot, who was shot by, and those types of things?
So it happened on September 3rd, and the guides that night were really unnerved. So Claire was on ticket sales, and Corey was doing the tour that night. And they messaged me. I was the other person working in the office that day and said, something just happened that really creeped us out.
Okay.
So they told me that on the way towards the Segway office, they had stopped by Hastens, which is that mattress store on the tour that we talk about. We have a really great story that we tell there because they've just seemed to have had so many things happen. One of the stories that we tell about the building came from Jason, the manager at Segway. And he and a friend were walking by, headed to the parking lot, which is right by the building. After work one day, they had gone out for dinner, and Jason decided to tell his friend a little bit more about the distillery. So naturally, he went to Hastens, where they've got that great ghost story. They were standing on the south end of the building on Distillery Lane, looking inside.
Is that the same location the video was shot from?
It is.
Okay.
So as they were standing there listening to this story, his friend suddenly said that he could see these two figures wandering in the northwest corner of the showroom. And at that point, the lights above them inside the building started flickering in a strange way. Now, we don't know much more about that time because they decided to just take off. They were a little freaked out and decided that was enough standing in front of Hastens for the evening. But Claire has told me that a few times she's had this happen to her as well. And not a lot of our other guides will have it happen. At least no one as obviously or as often as Claire.
Have you ever experienced this phenomena for yourself, as you've spent, obviously quite a bit of time right around there?
I haven't really, not when giving a tour. There was one time where I went into the building, I think with Claire, to be honest with you, and the lights were flickering. And this was during the daytime, so it was a little strange, but they didn't do too much. It went a couple times and then stopped. This is crazy. I'm excited, but to be honest, I'm a little afraid next time I have to go to the distillery.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to see what everyone has to say. Thanks so much for forwarding that on, and let's touch base soon. After speaking with Rowena, our star witness in this case, of course, is Claire, who actually shot the video and has been experiencing this phenomena on a fairly regular basis. I was very excited to talk with her, and I asked her some questions about what happened that night. Claire, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you are a tour guide for the Haunted Walk of Toronto.
Yes, I am.
And how long have you been doing tours?
I've been doing tours for a little over a year now.
Can you tell us a little bit about what has been happening to you at this location, and maybe a little bit about the location itself?
Definitely. So the location itself is a mattress or bed store called Hastens, and it's part of one of the older buildings in the distillery, which is called the Stone Distillery. And over the past year, I've had several issues with lights flickering in this building during my tours. And the first time it happened to me was actually right after a moment in our story where we talk about the lights flickering in this building. And since then, it's happened to me quite frequently.
So how often would you say, percentage-wise, roughly, that you experience these flickering lights while on tour?
Lately, it's been every night that I do the tour. But it started out maybe about once a month, and then for some reason kicked up in the last couple of months.
And have any of your colleagues there, any of the tour guides in Toronto, have they experienced this as well, or is this something that's really you've only had the privilege of experiencing?
A couple of them have told me that they've seen it very briefly, but it seems to happen the most to me, and it's gotten to the point where it's a little bit of a joke in the Toronto office. I come back from a tour in the distillery, and people always ask me if something happened to me that night.
And it does seem like trying to, eliminate the obvious things. It does seem like you can see right through to the other side, because you do see a car pass by at one point as well. Is that right? There's a kind of a street on the other side?
Yes, there's actually a parking lot on the other side.
So that explains when we see the car go by.
Yeah, there's a person that walks by as well, I think, at one point.
So as you, on this fateful evening, as you approached the building, were the lights already flickering when you arrived? Or I guess, what was the chronology there as to when you arrived, what started happening, and when you started actually filming the scene?
So we arrived at the building, and I started pointing out the different parts of the building that I've seen things happen in. And we'd been staying there maybe for about 2 minutes or so with no experiences at all. And I don't recall exactly what I said, but all of a sudden, about 3 different lights started going crazy. And that's when I said, oh man, I should probably film this.
Now, an obvious cause we should probably try to eliminate right away would be a reflection. As you were shooting through glass into the store, it does appear that those are the lights in the store, but just so we can cross that off, is there any chance any of the lighting you were experiencing was due to reflection?
I have, strangely enough, filmed through windows before. So when I started filming...
we won't ask the circumstances.
Yeah, that sounds a bit weird. But I knew that I should probably hold my phone up to the window and have it perfectly against the window itself. That was to minimize shaking, as well as hopefully minimize any possible reflections. And it does seem to have helped.
And so your on-the-scene perspective there was that the lighting you were seeing, the lights flashing and flickering, that was inside the building. There's no chance that was something external to the store itself, to the best of your knowledge.
Yeah, it was definitely coming from inside the building. You can see on the ground inside the building as well. You can notice the pools of light in certain spots that were reacting in the same way to the lights that were in the ceiling. Those lights were directly above the spots on the floor. So I wasn't reacting to what I was seeing on the video. I was reacting to what I was seeing in the store itself.
I understand you haven't filmed this before, but just so we have a sense of it, this went on for several minutes, where you seem to be interacting almost with the lights. Would you say was this an extreme example of what you witnessed, or is this more average?
This is definitely a more extreme version. I've never seen this many lights go off at the same time. It generally seems to just be 1 or 2. And I've also always been telling the story at the time to a tour group. So I've never really had the opportunity to take as good and as close a look at the lights as I would like to. It's generally something that gets pointed out to me throughout my stories. So this time I was really able to focus on it and notice the amounts of lights going off in the building.
Perhaps the most chilling moment for me was when you kind of requested that the lights start flickering, and the request wasn't perfectly met, as all the lights didn't start flickering, but certainly one did seem to increase increase the occurrence of the flickering. How did that make you feel? Because that it does seem like you are interacting with something that's causing this to happen.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. I was a little spooked, to be completely honest, but I can say it's not the first time it's happened on request to me, or for me rather. So I was a little ready for it to happen on request.
And has this changed at all your perspective on giving the tours or the stories on the tours?
It definitely has. It's lended a little bit more of a second or third dimension, I suppose, to that particular story when talking about the flickering lights. If people are really interested in that aspect, I can then divulge some of my own personal experiences, which is always fun because people really enjoy finding out that the tour guide has had an experience as well. But it's really made me love the distillery that much more as well.
Claire's answers were quite surprising and fascinating. And I wanted to next speak with Corey, since he was also on the scene. Could he verify what Claire was observing? Did he have any additional insight or perspective to offer? So I got a hold of him and see what he had to say. Now, I understand you are one of our more recent additions to our Haunted Walk of Toronto team.
Yes, this is my first season with the Haunted Walk. And actually last Thursday was my 4th tour with the company.
So as you were standing there, you were looking through the window into the store, Is I guess the first very basic question is, I would assume that you and Claire are not in any way doing this. This isn't a hoax. This isn't a prank. You've seen the video. This is what you saw as you were standing there.
Yes, this is exactly what I saw. I was skeptical, but I was also curious. I thought I found her to be very trustworthy and honest, and sure enough, it began to flicker, and we were no part of this. We were only talking about it on our way there. It's only my second time meeting her, but yeah, it was nothing planned. It was all random, and we were the only ones around who had seen this.
And there weren't any other non-paranormal explanations that came to mind as you were standing there. For example, it wasn't a reflection off the glass in front of you. It wasn't light from an outside source. There was nothing that quickly came to mind to explain what you were seeing.
Well, we were actively trying to debunk what we were seeing of the room. We can't explain it because it couldn't be a sensor. A sensor light would be going off near us, not on the opposite side of the building, and it was about 20 feet away from us, 20 to 30 feet away from us. And there was no one else on the other side of the building.
I'd be interested to hear a little bit more about the experiment you kind of ran at the end, where what I've heard is, you've talked about it a bit, you basically stayed in that window looking into the store, and Claire kind of crossed the street, across the road, went further down. And at that point, the lights stopped when Claire left and then resumed when she returned?
Yes. So she says she reports these lights flickering on many times when she's by herself or if she's on a tour. And it doesn't seem to react to other tour guides that I know of. Certainly not for me. And yes, we were standing there, and then she went away and she went out of view towards our office. And I was standing there by myself, and I was looking at all the lights. All the lights had stopped. They were back to normal. And people are walking on the other side of the building, and lights weren't flickering. But she came back about a few minutes later, and the lights began to flicker again. These same lights that were flickering before.
Has this changed your perspective at all in giving the tours, particularly of the distillery area?
Yes, it has really opened the possibilities that I could see more things on my tour, and it makes me more excited to go out for each tour. That night, though, I didn't sleep very much. I had to catch a train in the morning back to see my parents. But yeah, I was terrified. Every little noise that night made me jump. I've always watched ghost shows like Ghost Hunters growing up, but I never thought I'd actually experience anything.
I found there was a great deal of consistency between what Corey was saying and what Claire had also reported. It does seem, based upon the Rowena, Claire, and Corey, that this is unusual and doesn't happen that often, but it does seem like Claire is somehow involved in this. I knew it was going to be very important to try to speak to someone at Hastens, because an obvious question is, do they experience these flickering lights often while they're there working? If so, the chances of this being paranormal obviously go down considerably. So that was the big question we had for Hastens. We wanted to show them the video and also get their feedback. Is this unusual? We spoke with Nick Varden, who's a senior sleep consultant at Hastens. And just a reminder, Hastens' website is Hastens, that's HASTENS.com. And we showed him the video, and here's what he had to say.
Yeah, that's quite the interesting video. I know you had sent me an image earlier and said, hey, do you know what's going on? And it wasn't super clear. Now, after seeing the video, that's insane. So we've had people say, we've walked by at night, most of your guides, and said we've seen some flickering lights. And this has probably happened over the last year or so. And it's just been a rare case. Watching that video, especially that center light that kept flickering and flickering, and none of the other lights on that same line made any kind of movement. And the way it was so sporadic isn't like anything that I've seen here in the showroom, even with flickering lights. So that is very unique in just the energies that must be coming through it or something. I don't know. It's so hard to explain. Yeah, there was nobody working. Every night, what we do is we shut off our lights. There's two sets of lights that we leave on, so there is light in the showroom. One typically over our dreamscape, which is the big tree painting that you see. That's always lit up because, well, it's nice and bright, and it can kind of light up the rest of the showroom. But there's nobody in here that changes the lights. There's a certain way that we close them each night. I can show you that as well. And the thing that just spooks me about it is that that's the only light, again, on that whole system that was making any movement. We use only LED lighting. So, I mean, there's no short circuiting of them or anything like that. It's just, it's on or off. And this one's obviously not. So I don't know, it's bizarre. We upgraded our lighting to LED about a year and a half, 2 years ago. Before that, we would had tons of problems, but that's just because we had an old system. We've updated it since, and the only thing we've ever noticed is what you guys have shown us after hours. We don't notice this in the store during the day. We don't have flickering lights that do anything. It's unique that it's only at night when everything's turned off except the two light systems that we leave on, and one out of all those lights flicker. Like, that's, I don't know, like I can't think of, I'm not an electrician, but I mean, it's not a short circuit. I know that. I mean, these lights work all through the day, no problem. I don't know, like, it's wild to watch that video.
I found Nick's answers extremely surprising. I did think we were going to hear that this was something they observed on occasion or, but no, Nick seems to be quite surprised at seeing this, shocked almost by the video, and I found it, in particular, his statement that this is something they do not experience during the day, only something they hear about, to be quite a profound statement. The next thing I knew we had to cross off the list was, is this some type of electrical issue? Is the power surging, that kind of thing? And I knew we had to talk to someone with a lot of experience. So I got in contact with Michael Mueller, who is the master electrician at Toronto Electrical Experts. Their website is torontoelectricalexperts.com. They also have a Facebook a page by the same name. Definitely encourage you to check them out. And I asked these kind of technical questions, showed him the video as well, to see what he thought and if he had some type of simple explanation, electrically speaking, as to what was happening with these lights.
I've been doing electrical work from residential, industrial, commercial, institutional, for the last 27 years, approximately 5 of which was my apprenticeship in the late 80s, early 90s. And I've done several lighting layouts and different types of switching, from automation to standard lighting switches, of course, lighting controls and whatnot.
Yeah. So I guess the main question is, from an electrician's perspective, seeing these dancing lights that seem to perhaps turn on and off on command, what do you make of the footage?
I looked at the footage, I would say 4 or 5 times in the last, couple of days. And under normal circumstances, when we go out to do a call on with people that have issues like this, is usually there's loose connections, there's bad sockets in the light fixtures or in the pot lights. There could be faulty switches, also faulty control devices, like in the automation I was mentioning earlier, or in dimmers. But from what I could see there, having the random lights that were the way they were going on and off, it was quite, to me, it doesn't look like an electrical issue. I've never seen anything like that.
Interesting.
It really was. I was kind of floored when I was watching it, and that's why I kept watching it over and over and thinking I thought I was seeing things a little bit. But in all honesty, I would say this is more of an anomaly than an electrical issue. That's what I could say.
And if it was an issue with the power in some way, either it surging or a switch, as you said, not quite working properly, how would that look different than what we're seeing in the video?
it would actually stay. A lot of the times the lights would stay off and not actually turn back on. So I've never seen anything like this before, to be totally honest. And I've seen several cases of different lights flickering, and but a lot of times the lights will actually stay off after, if you leave it on for 5 or 10 minutes, they get extremely hot. The wires are either broken or contact breaks. Dimmers fail, automation relays don't re-energize. There's all types of different things, but once they flicker, they stay in the off position because there's too much of the contact is making a bad connection, and they don't turn on until you repair it. But the way they were flickering there is something new to me.
For us, obviously, perhaps the most chilling, creepy part of this is how it really seems to be affecting one of our tour guides disproportionately to everyone else. Is there anything, I'm guessing not, but is there anything electrical in nature in that area that might hypothetically explain that?
I wouldn't think so, unless the electrical circuit actually knows her and maybe has a crush on her. I'm not sure. Unless Toronto electrical experts were to come out and look at it, maybe then we could find something else. But I don't think, from what the video shows, it doesn't look like there's any other explanation other than it. I don't know, an anomaly of some sort.
I kind of wish I'd been recording video of my face during my conversation with Michael, because I'm pretty sure my mouth was wide open the entire time, because I was not expecting him to be as baffled as he was. I thought surely there must be some type of explanation he could offer us. So for him to refer to it as an anomaly was really quite surprising and chilling. We're going to continue to investigate Hastens to see if we can find any other explanations as to what's happening here. Certainly, if any of you who have watched the video have an idea, we would love to hear it. So please hit us up social media-wise on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, because we would love to hear some different hypothetical situations to explain what we're seeing. But it really is quite a mystery. The good part about this mystery is it is one you can take part in, as we do stop and tell the story of Hastens every night on our Ghosts and Spirits of the Distillery tour. So if you'd like to have your opportunity to be standing there and hear the full story about Hastens, definitely consider joining us on that particular tour. To be honest, I'm not sure what I think about this video. I think we have eliminated the most obvious possibilities that would be causing this phenomena. But the responses by Nick from Hastens and Michael the electrician really have us giving second thought and third thought as to what might be happening here. I would like to thank Rowena Brooke, our Toronto manager, Claire and Corey, two of our tour guides in Toronto. And certainly if you ever have a tour with those two in Toronto, feel free to ask them about this, as they're more than happy to kind of share their personal insights with you. Also would like to thank Nick Varden, Senior Sleep Consultant at Hastens, as well as Michael Mueller from the Master Electrician from Toronto Electrical Experts. Until we meet again, sweet dreams.